Morehead State, anything there that you have to really prepare for?
Yeah, they run good stuff. Some people are just simple and like ball screen motion, and there's nothing wrong with that. But they do a lot of good stuff out of ball screens, but they also run a lot of good quick hitters. So it'll be a good adjustment for us, just because Sanford was different in how they changed up everything. These guys are more traditional, and they'll get after you man to man. They mix up their ball screen coverages, and then they run a lot of good stuff in the half court.
Just your signing class, can you just give us a broad comment on, when you sign as many guys as you did, it has to be an important class, right?
Yeah, it's just different. Obviously, we've been fortunate enough to have a lot of returners, this year, and you're not just going to have that every single year. Some years you're going to have more than others. You'd like to have a balance at some point, but it's hard to set the market right. So yeah, I like what we've signed. I thought we signed two really good big guys. I know it's going to be shot publicly for this, but it's hard to get good big guys. You ask any coach out there, it is, and I know we get good big guys, but it is hard to get good big guys, and we were able to sign two really good big guys, and then we had a very versatile big guard in Cannon Catchings, who's very talented, and excited about all three of those guys, and then being able to get Jack Benner, who I think is going to be a really good piece for us. Understands how to play, high IQ, coach's son, skilled, and then CJ Cox. I thought that was an absolute steal for us, and just kind of stumbled upon him, but then after checking all the boxes and watching a lot of tape and doing my research, he has a lot of substance, a lot of toughness, shot maker. I think he's going to fit in great with our group.
5 for 5 on guys who can shoot. Was it your intention to go find big guys who can stretch the floor too, or did it just work out that way?
Just worked out that way. Just getting quality, getting guys that like to play, getting guys that are competitive. Obviously, they both have really good physical skills. Riley and Daniel both can move their feet. They both can shoot the basketball on the perimeter. But I think their length and their mobility is going to really help them be good defensive players also.
You mentioned Cannon as a guard. You see him being a backcourt guy?
Who he guards is probably more the question, right? More than anything. But yeah, like he would play, he's going to be, he measured out at 6'8.5", 214, like a month and a half ago. So like he could very, possibly be 6'9", 225 his first game here, which is kind of crazy, right? But very talented. He would be the same player in how he plays offensively if he was 6 foot. That's how he plays. He shoots pull-ups, he shoots threes, he attacks the basket. He does a lot of really good things. He's better in structure, which you don't see that a lot of times with an 18-year-old that's that talented. Most of the time they struggle in structure and they just want space and they want everybody else to get the hell out of their way. But he's not like when he played at Brownsburg last year when they ran stuff and did stuff. He was very, very functional in that setting. And so that's great to know, because that's normally a big adjustment. And I think when it comes to him playing from an offensive standpoint, he's already got a good pulse on things.
Tomorrow, do you look to use some of the same rotations as the other night, or do you tinker with things a little bit?
Yeah,
I know some of it's circumstantial too.
It's very circumstantial. When you get up 25 real quick, it's very circumstantial. It changes things a lot. I obviously played 17 people.
Right.
So like the ironclad 17-man rotation, I don't think will hold water. But I feel good about like where we are. I think, and I've said this a couple times, I think we're going to have a good player almost every game. We're going to look at his minutes and be like, man, he needs to play more. And then it's it'll be like the Riddler, like asking each other questions, like where, who, like how do you change? Because everybody deserves to play more outside of about 3 or 4 guys. And so they set the table, those 3 or 4 guys. And so you got to work around that and really just stay positive more than anything and just keep working, because the next night's going to be your night. But I had planned on playing like in a rotation of 10 guys right now. And I know I always back that up with, I never stay with that, and I get to 9 or I get to 8, but that's how I'm starting. All 12 of our scholarship players deserve to play, and I feel good about that. but obviously we only have 200 minutes.
How do you identify the hot hand or the best matchup on the fly, like in the first few minutes of the game? Is it numbers? Is it what you're seeing?
Yeah, just your feel, your experiences of like what matchup, or like I stuck with Miles the other night because he had played well, but Cam Heidi played well too in the first half, and I didn't stick with him. So that right away the score's at 30 points. Cam Heidi's going to get more minutes right as I saw that at halftime. I'm not going to be perfect in games like that in terms of minutes. The thing I can do is I can go and balance the minutes, but then I don't have the right mix. Like I don't have, and so if you're going to press us and you're going to change defenses, I'd like to have 2 ball handlers in there. And so like we have an abundance of wings, even though a couple of them can't handle it to a degree. So that's what really gets me. I can go and do it, but it's just now we're not going to be fluid out there playing.
Just to touch on recruiting a little bit more. Obviously for Purdue, it's good to have 2 freshman guards that showed they can start from day one.
Right.
Does that make recruiting a little more complicated the next few years? Just grabbing other guards?
Yeah, well, you'll find out like who believes in themselves. There's nothing wrong with discussing it, but if you're going to keep harping on it, then deep down, that young guy coming in or the people around him, they don't believe in themselves. The guards that look at it and talk about it, but then they're like, you know, you want to go to a really good program, like you're going to have competition. It wasn't like those 2 freshman guards didn't have competition last year. That's the way it's going to be, and it's how you want to handle it. If you keep running from competition, like we don't want you here in the first place. Like you got to come in and embrace it. Like you're not backing up Kobe Bryant. Like, you know what I mean? You know, it's something that guys that are elite and that are really, really talented, like a Jaden Ivey, like that's probably hard to overcome, but they don't stay long, right? You know, and so like the other guys, are they good players? Yeah, they're damn good players, but it's not something where you can't come out and move people around a little bit. That's what I always say about like Trey Kaufman and Caleb First, like going into next year. Like if you're a really, really good 5, then you're just going to move them to where they play more at the 4. If you're a really, really good 4 and we have to have you on the court, they're going to push more towards the 5 some. So, you know, it's for us, it's open season. You know, we don't promise anybody anything. So it's great. It helps our chemistry. It helps everything about our program. And it allows us to be healthy in everything that we say, because here's your opportunity and here's how we project it. But deep down, it's whoever earns it, you know. And so I know that's an old coach cliche, and a lot of times coaches just get so worried, and like obviously they don't want to get fired, they don't want to lose their job, so they just tell everybody how beautiful they are and promise them everything. Then they get there and they got a shit show in their hands, because like now everybody thinks they're playing shortstop and leading off. So when the lineup comes out, like, wow, I'm playing right and batting 9th. Like, you didn't say this in recruiting. Well, I already got you, right? I already got you. Like tough. So I'd rather do it the other way and lose some guys up front. And now, because we are trying to have a cohesive team, right? We are trying to have a good group together. And that's the key in team sports.
What was your first impression of CJ Cox that led you to recruit him?
Well, I was seeing somebody else, and he had 26 in the game, and then I just kind of watched him afterwards, and it was his last game with his AAU group, and he'd been with them since 3rd grade. So like, I wanted to know why all these people are hugging him. And I know it comes off crazy, right? But I did. I wanted to know, like, why is everybody worried about him? You know, everybody was like going to him and worried about him, and he had a good game. So I didn't know their coach. I didn't know anything about him. I know a bunch of people in and around like his prep school and his AAU, and I'd actually been into his prep school before, and recruited a guy about 7-8 years ago. And so like right as I started like asking questions and talking, it was just like off the chart substance, off the charts toughness. You know, he's developed into a shot maker. He can play both the 1 and the 2 as a combo, and so like everything, his boxes really checked. And I was really shocked that no other high majors, especially in that area, like went on him, just because when you're that skilled and you have that much substance, you're going to find your way.
Back to Cam Heidi, obviously hit I think maybe 3 threes the other night. Did you see him as that good of a shooter? And obviously
Yes.
with what's around him, he's going to have open looks. So.
Right. And I think that's, from a value standpoint, like his value really raises, making shots and making plays. Like he still had a couple drives that like he went, he's really athletic, right? Where he's got he's got to be able, if he can't dunk those, to be able to finish those. He's got to work on that because he's going to put himself in position with, you know, the way he sprints and gets out in the open court. He's got to continue to rebound. And then he's been given a lot of energy to the defensive end. And you see he had a couple blocks in the one exhibition. And so, you know, he's been making shots. He's been keeping things simple, which a lot of times those guys, they have like a nervous dribble to them where they just take off and dribble. A lot of them aren't used to playing with somebody like Zach. You got to wait and let him get his position sometimes. Sometimes it's not clean. Just have patience and wait. So I think he's learning that. But, you know, he's knocking down his open threes, and he's playing really hard, and his attention to detail is much better than it was last year.
You have to rein him in where he wants to maybe jump over the top of somebody and try to throw it down the line.
Long as he's doing that and he's got an angle, I'm all for it. You know, that's how he got hurt overseas. But like I like, you know, someone being that aggressive. We haven't really kind of had somebody like that 6'7", 6'8", whatever he is. That just, you know, when he dribbles, it's just like a missile going to the basket. He's just going to dunk it. And it's kind of cool now because like it's going to be harder to get those charges too. So like those guys really got to be set early if they actually referee it the way they say they're going to.
He said he's working at the floor a little bit. Is that something you might proactively go to, or is that just a...
We've done it a little bit. Well, yesterday we did it because Mason had a root canal. So Mason was out. It's always fun, right? You want to come to my practice or a root canal? He chose a root canal.
What's the difference?
There's everyone has their own opinion. So yeah, we've done it a little bit.
Is that something you go to though, matchup dependent, or is it just in case we need a third? It's not like you have a ton of minutes at the floor to give out either.
I think it just depends. I think he's a guy. Those coaches were talking the other day about like him picking up the basketball too. Like he can go and guard the basketball, which is it's great. Anytime you have that versatility where you have that big guard that can go maybe guard a bigger point guard that our smaller guards are having trouble with, or go and guard that 4-man and then be smaller. But we'll see. We'll see how things go. We got a pretty good front line.
Can Mason play tomorrow night?
Huh? Yeah, he'll play. He'll practice. He should practice today. He's a tough guy.